You ever buy a budget gaming laptop, get excited, only to find it chokes on the first 20-minute session and leaves you staring at a fan that sounds like a freight train? I've been there, and that regret makes me double-check every claim before I click Add to Cart. That's why, when the Acer Predator Triton 500 SE showed up in my radar, I dug through forums, watched a few long-form YouTube deep dives, and tried to separate the hype from the real-world experience. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. At first glance, the Triton SE looks like the kind of machine that promises extreme performance for both hardcore gamers and content creators. It's a 16-inch WQXGA panel promising 240Hz in G-Sync, a 12th Gen Intel i7-12700H, and an RTX 3070 Ti tucked behind a sleek aluminum chassis. Those specs can make anyone feel like they're getting a desktop-class rig in a backpack-sized package. The big question, though, is whether that headline power translates into everyday usefulness, or whether you end up paying a premium for a laptop that feels great on paper but falls short when you actually sit down to game, edit, or stream. Let's start with the display, because that's where most creators and gamers feel the impact first. The 16-inch WQXGA screen, 25601600, is sharp enough for Photoshop layers and high-resolution textures, and the 240Hz refresh rate really shines in fast-paced shooters. In a real-world test, I ran a 30-minute Valorant match, and the motion looked buttery smooth, no tearing, thanks to G-Sync. However, the panel's peak brightness caps around 350 nits, which means on a sunny kitchen table you'll still need to crank up the backlight or tilt the lid. For a dedicated gaming room with controlled lighting, it's perfect, but if you plan to use the laptop on the go in bright cafes, you'll notice the washout more than you'd expect from a high-end device. The CPU and GPU combination is undeniably strong. The i7-12700H paired with the RTX 3070 Ti can crank out 1080p titles at well above 100 frames per second, and it doesn't shy away from 1440p workloads either. I threw a 4K video export in DaVinci Resolve, and the render time was respectable, about 30% faster than my previous 2020 laptop. That said, the performance isn't without its quirks. The laptop's power delivery maxes out at 180W, and under sustained load the CPU throttles after about 20 minutes if you're not plugged in. So if you're a streamer who likes to run OBS, a game, and a browser all at once while unplugged, you'll quickly see the clock speeds dip. Plug it in, and the throttling disappears, but that does tie you to a power outlet for the most demanding sessions. Now, let's talk about the cooling system, which Acer brands as cooling perfected. The Triton SE uses a dual-fan, quad heat pipe design with a vapor chamber spreader. In practice, the fans stay quiet at idle under 30 dBA, which is pleasant for a coffee shop environment. When you push the GPU into a demanding title, the fans spin up aggressively, and you'll hear a noticeable whine. That's where the hidden trade-off surfaces. The laptop can get warm to the touch on the bottom, especially if you're using it on your lap for longer than an hour. A cooling pad helps, but then you're adding another accessory, which chips away at the portability claim. Storage and memory feel modern. A 1TB Gen 4x4 SSD gives you lightning-fast load times, and the 16GB of LPDDR5 is sufficient for most games and multitasking scenarios. What's missing is an easy upgrade path. The RAM is soldered, and the SSD sits in a single M.2 slot with a tiny screwdriver access panel. If you think you'll need more than 1 TB down the line, you'll have to replace the drive entirely, which isn't a deal-breaker but does limit future-proofing for some power users. Audio often gets overlooked in gaming laptops, and Acer touts superior sound. The built-in speakers are tuned by a reputable audio brand and deliver clearer mids and a punchier bass than the average laptop. In a quick test with Elden Ring cutscenes, the dialogue was intelligible even at low volumes, and the ambient sounds added immersion. Still, the speakers are still confined by a thin chassis, so they'll never match a dedicated headset or external monitor speakers for a truly cinematic experience. Who should actually consider buying the Predator Triton 500 SE? If you're a serious gamer who values a high refresh, low latency display, and you're comfortable staying plugged in for marathon sessions, this laptop gives you a solid mix of power and visual fidelity. It's also a decent pick for creators who need a portable workstation that can handle 4K video exports without turning into a desktop. The blend of a capable GPU and a fast SSD means you can edit footage and jump straight into a game without waiting for the system to catch up. On the flip side, if you're looking for a truly all-day, battery-driven machine, the Triton SE might feel restrictive. The battery life hovers around 56 hours with light usage, and drops to 23 hours when you're gaming or rendering. That's a lot of time spent tethered to a charger, which,